Welcome to Journeys of Empowerment, where real experiences spark real change and conversations go deeper than the surface. I'm Michiel Sujit Rijt, and here we don't do small talk, we ignite transformation. Before we dive in, a quick shout out to our very first believer and sponsor, Neotopia. Trying to boost performance with new processes, extra training or tighter KPIs? That might not just be the issue. The real challenge? Behavior. Neotopia takes a different approach. One that actually sticks. No gimmicks, no guesswork. In the awareness workshop, you'll learn why good processes fail in execution, why learning doesn't stick, and how to build teams that own behavior, not just follow the rules. Because change shouldn't wear you out. It should move you forward. Ready to lead differently? Visit neotopia.nl. What if the chapter you've kept quiet holds the very message others are waiting for? In this episode, I sit down with my friend Daan Schmidt, founder of StoryBrand Nederland and Buzzlytics. Daan's path from pastor to purpose-driven entrepreneur is a reminder that your past isn't something to leave behind. It's part of what gives your voice power. We dive into redefining identity without losing the soul, building transparent businesses that answer real questions, how a near-death experience sparked a new sense of urgency, and why Daan is stepping back on stage, not to perform, but to connect. Daan shares excellent isn't perfection, it's presence and intention. This conversation isn't just about storytelling. It's about returning to your calling with clarity and courage. Let's hear it. Yeah, I was looking so much forward to this episode. And the reason why is that it made me realize that only, I think 2 years ago we met. And I think it was at the Authentic Leadership or Secret Leadership program and event.
Yeah.
And we started to connect, and then I came to find out that you are an accomplished podcaster with almost now how many 200 episodes. And who could have imagined? I don't. That only 2 years later we are having a conversation in Journeys of Empowerment together.
Right.
I never. No. So
well, here we are.
Here we are, Daan. Hey, let's start just with what you're doing right now and who is Daan?
Yeah. So, who is Daan is something else than what I'm doing.
Very good distinction.
But I'll start with what I'm doing, and then we'll dive deeper into who I am.
Yes.
What I'm doing right now, we run 2 businesses. StoryBrand Netherlands. Our main headquarters are in Nashville, Tennessee, and we opened this office in 2021 and decided to launch StoryBrand into the Netherlands and Belgium, and right now across Europe actually. So helping companies clarify the message so customers will listen. That's what we do with workshops and trainings, and our book, of course. We launched the book as first, and the second business is Buzzlytics. It's actually a combination of 2 words, buzz, create a buzz, which in my opinion is marketing, and then make it measurable. So lytics from analytics, so Buzzlytics. And that's where we have a program where we help clients to really make their sales and marketing into a revenue team. Because the problem that we solve is that a lot of companies still have a sales department, a marketing department, and they see sales as an investment, marketing as a cost. Most bookkeepers do, most CFOs do, and I don't blame them, because marketing has a hard time of, really showing where's the money, right? And if you combine them into a revenue team with the same purpose and goals, it becomes a lot easier to really get momentum and a bigger return on investment. So that's what we do.
Cool. Yeah, I know what you and we work together with within the StoryBrand.
Yes.
With our sponsor of Journeys of Empowerment, Neotopia.
Yeah.
And it was a very intense, also sometimes a confronting process to really think as a guide, and your customer is the hero, and it's a journey, and it really opened our way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what also happens when you get involved with the methodology. I think it's within Buzzlytics when it comes to Taya.
Yeah.
They ask, you answer.
Right.
Maybe that's before we dive in. Can you elaborate a little bit more on Taya?
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, we used to have a marketing agency for about 9 years. It was Schmidt Communications, and we transformed it in 2023 into Buzzlytics. And the reason being is we were actually giving people a fish so they could eat, and now we're teaching people how to fish so they can eat for a lifetime. That's what we do. We train people to do it themselves. And there's more frameworks in our business, of course, because we also use StoryBrand in Buzzlytics and Full Focus and a lot of other frameworks. But the main framework is They Ask, You Answer. And what it actually is all about is that, we live in a society where people are used to finding information, finding answers to their questions as a consumer. Now, when you go to B2B, a lot of times that's not the case. I mean, a lot of websites in B2B don't have pricing on the website, don't talk about issues, they don't have a lot of reviews, they don't compare themselves to others so you can make a good choice. They keep that information to themselves, and it's not how we want to buy. So the whole They Ask You Answer program is really about a culture of transparency and openness and sharing information so you can build trust, because it's the only emotion on which people buy or not, right? If you have more trust in one party, they can be more expensive, but you'll probably decide to work with them because you trust them more. So it's all about trust. And it might be our biggest problem right now in society, that we have a lack of trust. And so I think we need a sort of revolution in our sales and marketing approach.
So in short, it's a methodology which helps your customers get their answers to the questions during a buying journey, and figuring out, and that's the trust building element in it.
Yeah. So if you combine it with StoryBrand, you just mentioned being the guide.
Yes.
I feel like They Ask You Answer is the plus on StoryBrand, where you decide, I'm really going to be the guide by answering people's questions. And if you become the one that's guiding them in their journey, then they obviously will choose for you.
I think so, because ultimately we are in business to answer the questions your ideal customer have. Yeah. And maybe also not your ideal customer, and find out during the buying journey, right?
Yeah, I'd rather have people drop out of my funnel early, because it's, it costs a lot of money to have your sales and marketing team spend time with people, because they're actually wasting their time, and you are wasting their time if you already knew that they would not be a fit. So you got to be really transparent about it. We work for those, we don't work for those. These are ideal clients. And then people can decide, okay, you're not for me. Well, that's also being the guide, right?
It is. This is only part of who you are, of course, as you mentioned, and you made the distinction very well. Were you always an entrepreneur?
No, that started later in life. Actually, in 2015, 16. So
10 years.
Not that long ago, actually. Because I'm 49, so most of my life I wasn't an entrepreneur.
All right, and what was your path before you became an entrepreneur? And what helped you on the path to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, right before I started our own business together with my wife, Lizzie, she started the business actually in 2013.
I love this story.
Yeah.
She's the CEO, eh?
Yeah, she's the CEO. Yeah. So,
I love to be the fly on the wall when you're having discussions at home at the breakfast table. No, like this.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
So I'm one of these guys that has nothing to say at work and at home. Yeah.
Well, luckily you are an animal on stage, so there's your outlet.
Yeah, right. That's why I need to be on stage, right? Let the lion roar.
It's all fueled and all in you. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
we can emphasize.
Yeah.
Emphasize that.
No, but it's true, and so it's funny. She started, and in 2015, for 2.5 years I was dreaming about owning a business, but I never knew, what am I going to do? And in the summer of 2015, while we were moving to the house we live in right now, and I remember it vividly. I mean, Lizzie was pregnant. We were decorating the house, and we were like, why don't we build this business together? And that's how we founded the business. I was still in a job as a commercial director, sales marketing manager at a software company for 7.5 years. We made software for charities, foundations, and membership organizations. It shows something of my interest as well.
Yes, that was what I was willing to ask. Is the scope of the business, was that one of the reasons why you were so long in that business?
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't just software. It was about changing the world. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt. Like we're really making a difference by giving charities, foundations, and membership organizations the right tools so they can grow and reach their goals and make this world a better place.
Scalable impact.
Yeah, scalable impact. And it really felt that way. I mean, we were having these people over at our office every day. We did a lot of events, a lot of webinars, and I really felt like, hey, I'm in this for-profit organization, working for not-for-profit, non-profit, and that's a big thing for me. So that's why I stayed there. But before that was my first job actually.
That was 7 years, eh?
7 years.
Yeah, 7 years. So 7 years. So to make the timeline, right? 7 years.
2008.
Yeah. And then 2015, the jump to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And before the whole journey in that company.
Yeah, before that I used to be a pastor of a church. So I was an assistant pastor for 10 years, full time, in a very vibrant, growing, international-oriented church, dual language, with humanitarian transportations in Ukraine, Iran, Sri Lanka. We were all over the place. We had a bookstore. We had a conference center, a training center, a publishing company, 12 employees, 300 volunteers. We were on television, local in Amersfoort. We were the first church in Holland that did a live stream. I still remember negotiating with Solcom internet services about the MBs, because back in that time it was all about the data that went through it. So we had approximately, I think, 300 people in the Sunday morning service and about 1,500 that were watching online. And back in those days, we're talking about late 90s, that was a big deal. I mean, that was really something. And I also remember my brother running this department where we made tapes, cassette tapes of the service right after the service with these big sleeves. So you had the original copy, and then you made 3 others, plus 4, plus 4. We did that later with CDs. So right after the service, people would pick up their tape or their CD and bring it home or to family members. And then that became MP3s. So you could just log in online and download your messages. It was very vibrant. We had a cafe, a restaurant in the church. So right after the service, people could just get anything they want, soup, drinks, sandwiches. We just wanted to be this vibrant place of life and energy. And that was my, since a kid, I think it was 5 years old, that I felt like this is my calling in life. I'm going to be an evangelist. That was my goal. So my whole life was built around that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear evangelist, missionary.
Yeah.
And that's also I think when you look from there, to where you're at now, right now, and you're at the crossroad also.
Yeah.
But we are going to have a deep dive into that later on.
Yeah.
But where does that come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think it has to do with your upbringing and what you're exposed to as a kid. But on the other hand, if you look at my brothers and my sister, I'm the middle of 5 children. I'm the only one with this desire, right? So it's not only upbringing. I think in every human being, there's this box that needs to be unboxed with your talents, with your desires. And I think the greatest gift in life is to discover your real passion, the thing that really makes you stand out, where you feel fulfillment and where you also feel like I'm really making a difference in other people's life. If those two things come together, it's magic. And that's what I felt. So in the beginning, when you're 5, that's just a dream, a wish. But one of the things I thought of this last week, while I was sitting in my own podcast studio and recording an episode with one of my colleagues, I felt like I suddenly had this picture of the past where I used to play radio in my room. I used to play television in my room. So we were making those shows. We made a television set out of a box and just sit behind it. So microphones like this, I thought it was very interesting. So we just played and played and played. And then at a certain age, 12 years, you go to another school, you get other friends, you got to get other interests. But I think still deep down inside, there's these parts of your journey. And if you look back and, like you always say, connect the dots, because in my opinion, for a long, in my mind, in my thought, in my way of looking at my own life, it used to be like, it's such a blur. I mean, here I am, wanting to be a evangelist or a pastor. I did that for a long time, and I was actually doing very well. I mean, I was on all kind of international stages. If you look from a career perspective, I was doing pretty good. I mean, people from all over the country came to our church because it was at that time a prototype of how to build a church. It was healthy financially. It was growing. We were really having an impact locally and also internationally. And I was speaking a lot, translating a lot. We had a lot of big names in our church, gospel artists. I remember one day Ron Canoli was in our church. He was the biggest gospel artist in the U.S. at that time. He played in the arena in Amsterdam at the evangelical. The AO, our Christian network, 40,000 people came there. So he was a big shot, and I met him. Yeah, I met him in Atlanta at a conference. I actually bumped into him at the restroom, and I thought it was an inappropriate place to start a conversation. So I thought, oh, man, that must have been Ron Canoli, right? So my colleague said, if you bump into him again, invite him. So I literally bumped into him again at the lunch.
Literally or deliberately?
No, because I didn't see him.
Oh.
So he came from the right. Well, I was standing this way, and I said, "Hey, are you Mr. Ron Canoli?" Because he actually apologized for bumping into me, and said, "Hey, no worries, but can I ask you a question? Are you Mr. Ron Canoli?" He said, "Yeah, I am." Do I know you? I said, "No, but I know you." And
as do the 40,000 people who are.
I said, it's going to be Christmas in a few months. What would you think of coming to the Netherlands and having a show in a church? He said, well, as a matter of fact, I will be in London. So here's my number. Call my assistant and ask for a meeting. So I was totally excited. And he came over to Holland. I actually went with him to all kind of churches all over Holland. We did this tour. They had created the Christmas musical I mean, high standard. Like, these are international artists, right? This is a big group coming over from the US through London. And the first service is really a funny story, actually. I was a translator for a long time. So simultaneously translating on stage from Dutch to English, from English to Dutch. That's one of the toughest jobs there is.
I can imagine. You have to constantly switch.
Yeah, constantly. And so I remember we're having the first night with this musical, and he comes on stage, and I was standing a little bit in the back so that all attention would be on him. And he starts singing. And he looks at me like, are you going to translate? And so I translated what he was singing. And then he said, no. So he sang that song again, that first line. And then I thought, he wants me to sing and translate. And that's just impossible, right? I mean, I've had singing lessons for 2 years. I was in the choir. I did solo sometimes. So I don't know, something came over me and I just went with it. And it was actually, so he stopped after a few sentences. So I was happy that he stopped with it. Then later, I told him that I knew all his songs by heart, including his rap. And so he remembered that. I should have never said that. So on one of the churches, he said, so he started the song, God is Able. And it's really about a song that his mother used to sing because he was raised very poor in a family with nothing. And he said, but my mama always used to sing. And then he goes to this song, God is Able. And there's this rap in it. So I rapped this song in church. So yeah, all these funny things that we went through. Yeah, it's amazing.
Right, cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, as you just mentioned, connecting the dots is what I love to talk about. And it's always easy, and it's always only possible connecting the dots in hindsight. Some wise person in life taught me while reading his book. Of course, Steve Jobs. If you look back to the moment where you were starting to think, okay, I want to go to the next thing. Was it out of missing something, or what fueled the transition from pastor to being a employee on a certain level to entrepreneurship? What was in between? What was in the liminal stage happening between A and B? A, the previous, B, the future. What was happening there?
Well, I think the main thing, I can still, there's different ways that I look at it, but one of the pictures that I have is like, I was reaching my dreams. I really felt, so when I was 18 years old, so I have to back up a little bit. So I went to MAVO, HAVO, Bible school. I was supposed to be there for a year, and then I wanted to do PABO to become a teacher and go to China and become a missionary. That was the picture. Mm-hmm. So everything prepared, that was the goal.
At age 18, you already felt this would be your path.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so my year in Bible school became 2 years. So I stayed for the leadership course. So a full year of leadership in a Christian organization. And while I was in Bible school, my parents got a letter from friends in Amersfoort saying, hey, we left the church in Leusden. We've moved to this church in Amersfoort. And we really want to invite you to come over and see for yourself, just taste and see. And so my parents, they're really open. So, of course, they went. And I went with them. This is 1994. And this is right before I'm going into Bible school. And two big mamas, they were standing at the door hugging everybody. So this is an American church founded by an American pastor. And there's this international culture. I mean, there's all kinds of people from all kinds of races and backgrounds the whole choir, the whole band, it's swinging, they're dancing, they're laughing. The sermon is more like personal development, but really from a biblical perspective. I mean, powerful preaching. I'd never seen this before. And I'm an 18-year-old boy thinking like, man, and I saw some cool guys on stage, successful entrepreneurs that believed in God, that were swinging and dancing and using the tambourine. And I mean, this was part of their life. I thought up till then the church was a little bit stiff and, I don't know, it was a little bit religious, I would say. And this was so unconventional that to me, this is what I felt when I was 5 years old. This is what I'm called to do. And the way he preaches, that's what I want. And so I told my parents, I said, I don't know what you guys do, but I'm going to stay here. And that's what I did. And so while in the first year of Bible school, I had this desire to do something for youth in the church. There was no youth group. While there was a lot of youth, and I had this passion of sharing, right? Mm-hmm. So I went to the pastor and I said, his name was Ford, and he was from Louisiana. There's a big church there that plants churches all over the world, I later found out. And so I was like, shall I be your youth pastor? Shall I start a youth group? And he said, what is your plan? And I said, well, this is my plan. So for 14 years, every Friday night, I was having this youth group with about 70 people in one of the poorest places in Amersfoort. So a lot of, tough guys, tough girls that have seen things they shouldn't have seen, went through stuff, and they felt like this is a place where I belong. I feel at place here. We had music, we had a band, we did all kind of things. We traveled, we did a lot of things.
One question before we move on. What specifically made you feel you belong? What were the elements? Can we unpack that a little bit?
Of me belonging in the church there?
That made you feel I belong here, specifically here.
Yeah, well, it has a lot to do with the U.S. culture, I would say. See, I grew up in a little village close to Soesterberg, where we had this big American air base. These people lived in my street. I washed their cars when I was, having my first desire to earn money. I would wash their cars, their upper windows. I did their gardens. And they would also be so kind. There was a big difference. If I would do a garden or a car at a Dutch couple, sweet people. I mean, I still have contact with some of them. You would get a glass of water. No, Americans, they put a box outside, a cool box with Coca-Cola Classic. That's what their Coke was, named, and with some, and if I wouldn't be ready by lunch, they would go to McDonald's in Soesterberg, the first McDrive, yeah, and they would take stuff. It would be cold by then, but they would, the hospitality and the openness. I was on gymnastics, I remember, as a kid. And Marty Biza, my friend from Austin, Texas, who lived, a couple of streets further, when he would get a letter from the gymnastics that we did, I would have to translate for his parents. Contribution is going up. Okay. And so I feel a connection with the U.S. I love the kind of people. So when I come to a church like that, where I see this spirit of hospitality, of openness. See, we say a lot of times here in Holland, they're superficial. You don't get to. It's not true. It's absolutely not true.
It's superficial to say they're superficial,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And the multicultural thing, I love that. So these are the things that I felt attracted to.
Yeah, I know you a little now. I can see you being there.
Yeah. And
being surrounded by that feeling.
Yeah, the positivity. I think that's also a key word. I mean, these are people that are dreaming, that are reading, that are talking about self-development. If we share our dream, the Dutch culture sometimes, and I don't want to sound negative about the Dutch culture. I love Dutch culture as well, but some things, right? Mm-hmm. Every culture has good and bad. But we would say, well, act normal. Just stay normal. But in an American church, you can imagine if you share something that's, positive, they would cheer you on.
Go.
So go for it. It was a very, very, everybody loved being there.
You mentioned culture and good or bad. I think it's knowing you, I think we mean the same thing. It's more or less aligned with your personal values and with your worldview. If can you share a little bit, because you're so mission driven, and so also when a little sidestep, when I prepped the fuck up boat conversation I was planning with our mutual friend Johan from We Love SaaS. I had a phone call with you, and there I asked you what is the one or two questions you would love me to ask.
Yeah.
And one of them was really value based. So from which values are you making your decisions, and are you looking through the lens of the world, and and also when it becomes difficult. So that's my interpretation of your question. Huh? If we look at your journey as far as we shared it right now, what values are you looking through the world, and when does a culture doesn't feel as much aligned for you as you would have, as for instance the American culture?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at my values, my main value in life is generosity. That's like, I did this exercise a while back again to look at my own values. Are they still aligned? Am I living in my value system? And I find this red thread throughout my life. It's really about generosity, and the generosity value is backed up by some other, like excellence. So not perfection, but I like things to be good. If you do something, give it your all, and it's way more fun. I actually found it's easier to have a spirit of excellence than to do things mediocre. It takes a lot more energy to be mediocre, I found. It sounds strange, but I do think because there's once you break through mediocrity in your life, in any area, and sometimes you have to go back to a certain place and say, oh, I'm going to do this with excellence again, there's an energy that's released that makes it easier to go for excellence. That energy is not in the mediocrity. So we miss out a lot of opportunities in life because we are just mediocre. And mediocre comes from disbelief. So if you don't really believe that you can make a difference, for example, if I as a father feel like inadequate of, being an example for my daughters or my son, I will stay in a spirit of mediocrity. But if I really believe deep down inside, I am here to make a difference for them, you release this spirit of excellence and energy is released, and it becomes so much easier to be the best you are. And this is what I felt in this church. There's a spirit of excellence. It's the total opposite, by the way, of perfectionism. Perfectionism is what you feel in religious systems. That's why I'm so against religion. Religion is about rules and regulations, standards that are too high to live up to, and you feel like I'm imperfect and I need to be perfect. That's why a lot of people leave church, leave God, because they feel like I'm not good enough. I don't want to be in a system that tells me that I first have to be somebody before I can be accepted. Well, that's ridiculous. That's got nothing to do with my personal faith system and how I see God. God is all about love. Love is about acceptance. When you feel accepted, when you feel loved, you feel belonged. And when you feel that, perfectionism is out of the door and excellence becomes a part of you. You just want to be a better person. So it's a whole different, can look so much the same, but you know, it takes. If you really look at your gut feeling, you will find one is black, the other is white. One is good, one is bad. One is positive, one is negative. And you can, you know, that you have this beautiful picture of this banyan tree, the tree of life. Well, if you look at a tree, the Bible says you can find what kind of tree it is by looking at its fruit. Now, if you look at your life and my life, sometimes our fruit is not good. That's when we live in the wrong system. We've been tapping from the wrong source. And if you tap from the right source, it becomes positive. It becomes good. And now it's fruit. I mean, the other thing is work. Religion is about work. You have to do it. You have to be a good dad. And you feel miserable all the time because you're not, you know, in your human system, you're not good enough.
It sounds very conditional also, right?
Yeah.
It's all if then, then, if then.
Yeah, that's what the church has done. The church has done a really great job at miscommunicating God's spirit. I mean, really, like, to be honest, right?
Then what's happening right now is getting me utterly curious why you're so fueled. There is something in here happening inside you when we're tapping into the value systems, and especially when we come to the excellence.
Yeah.
The excellence part, so generosity and excellence. And which one was the other?
Yeah, generosity, excellence. There's a couple of them. I think community is a big one of it as well.
But excellence and the difference between excellence and perfectionism, which in my opinion is an illusion anyway. So what's perfection and who determines perfection?
Exactly.
So, and it's all in our mind, in our head, in our body, in our systems, in our belief, in our nervous system, in our neural pathways, whatever we think. But it's an illusion, I believe. But I love the energy which pops up when you're talking about the difference between those two, and also projected on the trajectory in your own life, how you experienced being in church, rules and regulations. It sounds almost as if that kind of religion feels obedient. Very...
Yeah, I think,
obligations, expectations, opinions based.
Yeah, it's outside in instead of inside out. So I have to...
It sounds almost forced upon.
Yeah, you place yourself under a system. And, I remember that when I became this youth pastor, did this for 14 years, which is a very long time. The only Fridays I skipped was when I was on vacation.
14 years long.
Yeah. It went by like this. I've never thought about it. Only after that I did this for 14 years, I realized, I've done this for 14 years now. There's never been a time where I felt like I'm doing something that I have to do.
No.
And I did it, I think, a few weeks or months. And I remember the pastor, this American pastor, came to me and said, Sunday, I want you to preach. And I was 18 years old, standing on the stage before church, 18 years. I think I was the youngest pastor in Holland. And I was preparing like crazy, But at a certain moment, I felt like this is the message I have to bring, and that's what I'm going to bring. I wrote it out, word for word. I knew it by heart. And I just preached my heart out. And I felt for the first time in my life, I like, this is it. This is what I'm here for. Really making a difference by sharing an idea where people, and I later heard how this message changed people's lives. So there can be one sentence, right? There can be one word actually, or one thought, or maybe even something I didn't say, but somebody felt.
Or you just didn't say, but because you didn't say, it made the message very clear, right?
Yeah.
That's also, and that's maybe I think not a weird, but the reason why LLMs and especially ChatGPT is so resonating, because it's built up towards what you really love to hear, what resonates within you, right?
Yeah.
It's you have to be very cautious about that one. But
Yeah.
Daan, and if we look at where we now are, I believe, and knowing you a little, you're still in warming up stage, buddy. You're still in warming up stage. There is so much in you, and it's getting out via your work, but also maybe it's also part of the unpacking. You are a father of 1, 2, 3, 4, five children.
Yeah.
All boys, girls. You mentioned girls.
One boy.
One boy.
And 4 girls.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How is that?
Fun. Yeah, it is. I love it. Yeah.
If you would love them one of your values to adopt, what would it be? Because you are mission driven, you are value based. Of course, in upbringing, we also would love to give them autonomy, I know you. But on the other hand, we raise our children also from a belief system.
Yeah.
So which would be the one you really would love to pass through?
Generosity. Yeah. My main value.
Can you unpack generosity maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, to me it means like living from a mindset of wealth instead of poverty, scarcity, lack. It's this abundant mindset. It's like if I give something to you, I don't have less. We both have more. And it starts with a smile. When you go down the street today and you smile at somebody, I do this as I love doing this.
I love that too.
Yeah.
You always get a response, right?
It's the easiest thing to change somebody's day.
There's instantly a mini connection.
Yeah. And gratefulness really, for me, is also a part of generosity is being grateful. Like if you smile, if you thank somebody in traffic, if you wave at somebody like, hey, thank you for letting me, or when they thank you, you let somebody go for you. That's where it all starts. And if we crampingly hold on to things that we're supposed to share, we get poorer because we miss out on an opportunity. Somebody else misses out on an opportunity, and we just skipped. So yeah, it's back to this tree idea where if you prune a tree, it gives more fruit. So we don't like to be pruned in life. We don't like to go through hard stuff. So a lot of people stop being generous when they see that they are getting abused or mistreated or somebody doesn't give back, but it's not your call. I mean, if I give something to somebody, I don't expect them to give me back. That's not giving. That's an exchange. Mm-hmm. That's totally different. The exchange can come as a result of giving, but it's not from that person.
No. And it's not from that intention too.
No,
right?
Not from that intention too. Mm. So it's unconditional.
Yeah.
And I believe that's really, life is, a lot of people say life is a mystery, but I think you unpack the mystery once you start being generous, because it just brings you into a very different state of mind.
When you say unconditional, that resonates deeply with me personally. Yeah. We just had, before we started, we had a conversation about when you ask, hey Michiel, how are you doing?
Yeah.
When it comes to unconditionally, do you believe in unconditional love?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when was the first time you met unconditional love?
I think with God, as a child growing up in church. I was 14 years old and I was in Croatia, and there was this, again, American youth pastor. And we as a church, we took our teenagers, me including, to a mission trip. And when Richie and Debbie from California, I don't know their last names, I just remember that. And it just made such an impact on my life. Again, somebody from stage sharing, and was really about love. That was his only message. And and I still have contact with one of my friends that was there as well. And for me, that was a very pivotal moment in my life. Seeing somebody from stage who was young. I mean, I was 14 years, so another seed was sown. Like, this is what I want, man. He's making an impact. These are rough kids here in Croatia. They've been through hell and back. And you can see that, you know. I've seen people change. I remember one girl, and she was really, really, I don't know. If you looked at her, she was like, as if she was held back by something very strong. And I remember that they prayed for her. And after that, she screamed really loud. And she was crying all over the place. She came later to the lunch table. We were really like, you know, is she coming back? And she came back at the table. It was a different face, a different person. Mm. And it was not just a moment, but, you know, the rest of the week you could see she had been transformed. I mean, really.
Something shifted inside.
Something shifted inside. And I believe that was my first, like, oh my goodness. And she shared her testimony. And it was all about unconditional love. She felt unconditional love for the first time in her life. And, you know, there's different layers of love. I think the highest is in Greek they call it agape love, like the God kind of love. And I think you can feel that in a relationship, in a romantic relationship especially. I think you can feel something like, because it's spirit, soul, and body, that you feel so connected to somebody that you feel like, hey, this is it. And I don't personally believe so much that there's only one person made for you. I don't believe that. I think that's doesn't fits with my abundance mindset. But I do believe that if you choose for somebody, that you again open up the gateways of this unconditional love. It's actually more a decision than waiting for a certain feeling. Mm. I mean, the feelings come and go, right?
What is the decision to be made?
I think the decision is to say, hey, this is it. You know, I'm giving my all, and no holding back.
Yeah, that's no holding back. For me, the one word would be allowing.
Yeah, allowing. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the hardest for me, for myself. That's why it resonated so much when we had the pre-conversation before we started recording. Was about the allowing part.
Yeah.
Embracing and allowing, and yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing, buddy. Hey, and while warming up in all these beautiful stages in life, being a father of 5, married with your CEO. I love to say that. It's about unpacking your journey. We're heading towards something, right? Where you're, in my opinion, a very driven, guiding entrepreneur, helping a lot of entrepreneurs. And what I loved doing is that shift and transformation. You first of all, when we did the framework for StoryBrand, that shift, what's the transition you're actually helping your customer to make?
Yeah.
And that's I think it's the way you do it is via being an evangelist, but where you're really helping people with is shifting perspective, worldview, transformation. That part. It's not even about I want to be on the stage and I want to be heard, seen, and of course that's part of it and understood. Otherwise, how can you help people shift if you're not understandable?
Right.
If you confuse, you lose. But That's something. You love to help people make a transformation, to shift and transformation.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And it brings me to where you're heading towards. You're working to something even more serving your bigger purpose, I believe.
Yeah.
We had a beautiful dinner and conversation where you shared a little about it.
Yeah.
And we're heading now towards the second half of the year. So there is going to happen something in future, quarter 3, quarter 4. But where are we heading to when it comes to Daan?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's been a long journey. I feel like your destiny is found in your history. And
that's the aim of Journeys of Empowerment. It
is.
It truly is.
Yeah, so I feel like, if you connect the dots in hindsight, there's all these little secrets that you can unpack. And I've been unpacking a lot. And at a certain moment, I felt like there's a message inside me that can't be contained anymore. I have to get on stage and share what's in my heart. And it's really, I like the way you put it, like a transformation, because that's how I always felt it. So, if I go back in time and look at, at a certain moment we bought a building, we had our own church, beautiful stage, 2 big beamers, 2 big screens. We could project anything we wanted. It was a nice podium. And I was prepared too roughly. But I wasn't scared of going on stage and feel like I feel led by sharing something else. The people need something else. I've prepared A.
Yes.
I feel B.
I heard you sometimes say that in a podcast, I believe, reading the room.
Yeah.
And while reading the room, throwing away all the preparations I did and really getting in tune with the audience and where they are at that moment, specific moment.
Yeah.
And which mindset and energy and tapping into that.
Yeah, and I think this is the big difference with people standing on a stage from a professional point of view, where they have not enough depth in themselves, but they can share this one story. And I've always tried to, and not only tried, but I feel like that's my calling. And so that's really a gift that I feel, but still a decision to make for me as a human being to say, okay, I'm going to live in abundant mindset. So I'm going to, every day is about learning, about reading, about listening, about experiencing life, trying to look at it from a distance and understand things, journaling a lot. I wrote everything down. I've kept every journal. I still have all my notes from every sermon I've preached. And saying, okay, when I go on stage, it's not my preparation for that one sermon. My life is my preparation. So if you stand on stage and you're able and willing to share you and not your message, that's the difference. And that's why you can shift, the preparation is for me, not for them.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And otherwise it gets scripted and mechanical instead of connective.
And the miracle happens in the moment. The miracle happens in the moment. You can't force a miracle. I remember one day that I felt like, okay, there's only one idea I need to share today. I need to share the thought of perspective. And what I found in my preparation was these pictures of Earth. And so my first picture on the 2 big screens in church was this Earth, and was pretty big, and you saw some other planets. And every time we clicked, the Earth became smaller and smaller and smaller until you had this one little blue dot. Actually, you couldn't see it anymore. There was an arrow, and you saw the biggest planets. And I really felt this, like genuinely, like if I can give this as a gift to people, that they will look at their lives, because sometimes we're so involved in everything, that we don't see perspective anymore. So, and if you combine that with scriptures from the Bible, and you say like, Okay, you're worried about your life, and we just saw and you're a little dot on the dot. Mm-hmm. And so what are you worried about? If he really exists, and if he created all of this, why would you worry? So, and really drilling down that one point was, I think, one of my best sermons ever. Just one thought.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And when are you worried?
Many times. I mean, I think one preacher that I spoke to years ago, spent a lot of time with him, also in the U.S., but also in Holland. He said, Daan, your biggest enemy is fear, because you're called to faith. And I really feel that sometimes, that your biggest calling as a person in your life comes with the biggest handicap. Because it has to be balanced somewhere.
Balance, interesting word.
And it needs to, I really feel like I have a lot of fears and anxieties and worries. And because I have that, it helps me also to have more faith, etc. So here comes my point that I want to make as an answer to your question, like where am I heading? To make that really concrete, yeah. I will do that in 1 second. Before I do, I want to mention this one thing to people and for themselves. If you want to discover your calling, we are looking in the wrong places many times. It's really close, and it's the opposite of your biggest struggle. It's the opposite of your biggest struggle. And for me, I have doubted God. I've prayed a lot of times. I've been very angry at God. Why have you put me on this side path? I mean, I'm living in church, I'm preaching, I'm breaking through with an international speaking career. I'm about to start writing my own books. I want to grow this church. I want to do this. And why did you put me on a sidestep? Why do you want me to be an entrepreneur? And I've never received an answer to that question. Heaven was silent. And at a certain moment, I really felt like, but this, I don't know why. I just really don't know why I have to start a company and do all of this. But it's the thing I have to do right now and want to do right now. So this was the struggle. I'm not doing something I don't want to do. That's not my point here. But in comparison to my calling I feel on life, how does this work? And now, being older, more mature, I went through some big shit in my life as well, both at the end of leaving the church and with my health, my divorce, almost dying in a hospital in Switzerland, a lot of stuff. It made me a much better person, more balanced. I'm a different Daan than I used to be when I was 18 years old. And so I sometimes think, isn't it the wisdom of God that I went through all of this shit to come back stronger and more ripe and more mature, that once I start going on stage again, I really have to share something from my own experience, which is, I think, nicer, deeper, more loving, more unconditional.
Lived experience.
Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do. So I've decided to start sharing from stage again. And it's going to be different than I've ever done. I think probably that's my biggest struggle right now. How am I going to share it? How exactly am I going to word it? But I've decided, no, I'm not going to try to figure it all out before I make a move. I'm just going to rent a room, sell tickets, and start sharing. So that's what's going to happen before the end of the year.
Wow. Curious, buddy.
Yeah, we're really close. I've looked at 2 rooms now. We're visiting them, I think, next week Friday. Or this week. Yeah, in a couple of days I have going to make 2 visits. Then we're going to plan a date, and then our website will go live, a 1-pager, with a waiting list, and I'm just going to inform my crowd and see how many people want to be on the waiting list and see what happens.
How does it feel?
Very good. Yeah. Very positive energy. And I get a lot of, it's strange, but a lot of people, for a lot of people, it's way more logical than it feels for me at certain moments. So I get a lot of confirmation from outside that I should do this. People say, yeah, of course you got to do this, you know. But it feels like a relief that I'm finally deciding to step out in the light and share me as a total person, you know. It feels like I've lived a comparted life. Like there was this church life, then there was this business life, then there was entrepreneur life. And to me, it feels like everything is coming together, and Daan is going to share Daan.
Who you are.
Who I am. And I believe there is something that, yeah, I trust that it will attract the right crowd. Yeah.
You mentioned, while sharing where we're heading to, you mentioned also some, well, let's say life defining moments, critical moments, as the near-death experience, divorce, the church part, and getting out of the church, stepping out of the church. If you have to mention one, is there one most life-defining of them? It's, of course, it's a path and it's a journey. But if you have to mention, what is there one to mention which really ultimately helped you on the path you're now on and to become you, who you are?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, one of the main, they all have a special place in my heart now. But if you look at my moment where I left the church, it's really interesting that, you know, our American pastor started the church and I used to be his assistant pastor for 4 years. And then I was the assistant pastor for 6 years to a Dutch pastor who took over the church. And it went from life to death. It went from what I just shared about, you know, excellence to perfectionism. So we became legalistic. And that goes very gradually, very slowly, and it takes the life and energy out of a church. And I didn't see it. I was in the middle of it. I've been in that church for 17 years. It was part of my life's work, like many others who put so much energy in it. So I didn't see it. And when I became, as an assistant pastor, you're actually, compared to a company, you're an operational manager. And so I felt very inadequate of that job. I had done 2 years Bible school. I knew theology. I studied the Bible day and night. But I didn't know how to build a business, how to take care of a team and organize things and processes and procedures. I didn't know that. So I studied. I began to go back to school. Got my bachelor degree in business management. And while sitting in those meetings, I felt like all these boys and girls, all my peers have great jobs at great companies. I was very interested and intrigued by their stories and how different it was than a church life. And how relatively easy it is compared to a church life, because in a church, it's your spiritual family. It's your, your pastor is also your boss. So it's pretty complicated. And I felt this desire to go into business, which immediately brought me into this confusing state of, but that's not my path, right? So I prayed and prayed and prayed, didn't hear anything. So finally decided I'm just going to follow my heart. I feel attracted to going to business. I don't understand why. I have a hate-love relationship with this move. I need a coach that's going to help me to navigate this path that I've never been on. So I took a coach that I had some conversations with, did a talent analysis. What am I going to do in business? Who wants Daan, who's been a pastor? I mean, look at my my papers. I mean, so it was an interesting phase. And when I left the church, you got to understand that I was in church for 6 days a week. And now I was only 1 day a week in church, like Sundays. My only day off was actually Mondays. So my Sunday was supposed to be my Saturday, and Monday was my Sunday. But it's not, because in church you're still the pastor, even if you don't have anything to do that day, even if you don't have to preach. So it's hard work. And going to church only on Sundays, it sounds really childish. But I went to sit back in the back row more and more and more, and I was observing what is being said here, what is being done here. Is this what I believe? I don't belong here. This is not me
anymore.
Yeah. I felt like, where we started with the church was healthy, and this was unhealthy. This was more about people than about, anything it's supposed to be. And so, a long story short, I started reading other books from other preachers. I remember somebody gave me one of them from Singapore, and I read this book, and I read it. I stayed awake until I finished, and I felt like I've heard the gospel for the first time in my life, because the gospel is about grace, not about regulations. I've become legalistic. I more trust on what I do to save me or make me a better person than who I just am. And that, I think that's a big game changer. It's part of my mission, I feel, is to, we've thrown away a lot of our Christian values in society, as I feel. A lot of people don't want to have anything to do with God anymore or with church. And I really believe that's a pity, because there's a lot of value in it. There's a lot of good things in it that we have thrown away. And I would like to be an ambassador I would like to share stories of values that we can find in those stories from the Bible that could help us navigate life better. And that's what I want to share. In a non-religious way, for people who do not believe in God and do not go to church. And if people do believe in God and do go to church, they can come too. Yeah. They can sit in the back. Yeah.
If it's in the too religious way.
Yeah.
Right? Then the last question for now, since we can talk for hours, and I love to listen to your whole story and to the depth, and I have tons of questions to go even deeper, but we're always limited a little bit by time. Luckily, in our friendship, we aren't.
Right.
So, my last question for now is, why now?
Great question. Yeah, time is an interesting. So when you talk about why now, you talk about a moment in time, right? And I feel like things have come together. For, after my near-death experience, I felt like, okay, I have a second chance. I'm back, literally. So I was upstairs, and I had this choice. There was literally a man saying to me, "Hey, you want to stay here? You want to go back?" And I decided to go back. You don't want to go back. Once you felt a taste of the life hereafter, I can promise you, you don't want to go back. There's one thing that brought me back, is my wife and my kids. So I have a second chance. And my second chance is in my first mission, which is Lizzie and the kids. That's why I'm back. And I feel like this is a second mission. And not so long after that moment in 2018 already, I was driving down a little road near our home, and there's a little Grace Chapel. It used to be an English church as well, dual language. I'm attracted to dual language. I'm a cultural guy. I love people from all backgrounds. And I felt this voice inside that said, you got to be on stage again. And I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and the first story in the book is actually about this black man, which is important for the story, who puts an advertisement in the newspaper and says, this Sunday, 10 a.m., come listen to my speech in which I will say what I will do with if I would have $1 million. And so Sunday morning comes, 10 a.m., and he's standing before this crowd of people. And one guy who read it in the newspaper was a very wealthy businessman, and he was just, intrigued by this guy. And he listened to his sermon or speech, and he was sharing how he wanted to start a school which was unprecedented at the time for black people, that they could have a good education as well. And so the man walks over to him and says, Monday morning, 9 a.m. in my office. And the guy goes to this wealthy entrepreneur, and he writes a check for $1 million and starts this school, which still exists in the U.S. today. And when I read that story, I felt like, wow. I mean, you got to imagine that this man had a mission. And he just, what we would call a newspaper would be social media. And I really strongly felt urged to put it out there, to just say, my story, to just share it and not be afraid. And I've been holding back fear, anxiety. Who's going to listen to Daan? What do I have to share? While deep down inside from my past, I know what I'm able at doing on a stage and how I can share a story. So finally, I through all kind of things, I decided it's now. Now is the time. So why now? Because I've been waiting too long. And that's my call to action to anybody who listens to watch this. If you feel like you have a calling on your life, don't wait. Don't waste it. Could be too late as well, huh? Could be.
Nothing to add. Daan, thank you very much for your openness, sharing your journey. I really have to process the whole conversation. There's so many layers in it. How did it make you feel afterwards? Maybe that's the last question for now.
This podcast?
Yeah, conversation.
I'm excited. It gave me an opportunity. I was really looking forward to spending time with you. I know that you're a great listener, and I know that you ask the right questions, and I hope it helps somebody, but it definitely also helps me to structure my thought process and, sharing.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.